Let's bring you a look at the day's business news then. The stock market is still very focused on the consequences of the coronavirus outbreak, and our business editor Stephen Carroll is here, joining us here on set. So Stephen, did Donald Trump's comments, did they allay any fears at all?
Well, I think that was the goal of the US President's press conference on Wednesday, when he said that in fact it was politics to blame for the recent falls on Wall Street rather than fears over the virus. But investors seem to be paying more attention to health officials on this, who've said that communities in the US need to start preparing for when the disease spreads domestically. Wall Street was closed for the day when the US president spoke, but the stock markets are tumbling and trading again today. At the start of the day in Europe, sharp falls across all of the major markets. They're all down up to 2% there. The biggest falls being seen on mining companies, oil firms and the travel sector. Here in France, Air France is down by 3% at the open. This week, we've seen around $3 trillion wiped off global markets, some analysts saying the worst may still be yet to come. In Asia earlier, the Nikkei in Tokyo was down by 2%. There were some gains on markets in Hong Kong and Shanghai, though. Now, in Shanghai, that's partly because the number of deaths in China is falling. And there are hopes there that stimulus from the Chinese authorities might help to boost the business sector. That's the picture on the Asian markets. Meanwhile, a survey of American companies operating in China has found that a third of them are cutting costs as a result of the outbreak. Almost half of those surveyed by the American Chamber of Commerce in China say they expect their 2020 revenues to be lower. Less than a third think that things will be back to normal by the end of March. But those businesses are expecting the Chinese government to step in, around half of them expecting tax breaks from Beijing to compensate for some of their losses. Now, the travel industry has been one of those worst affected by the spread of the virus, airlines suspending flights and tourists cancelling their trips as a result. Here in France, businesses have seen a plunge in visitors from Asia, but those travelling from here are also reconsidering their holidays. I've been discussing this with the head of Tourism Ireland. That's the government agency that promotes the island of Ireland as a destination. Niall Gibbons says the sector will bounce back.
But I think this is a very important time of the year. We're right in the peak of the booking cycle right now. It's causing a level of uncertainty in the industry. It's important for our industry to remain calm. It's important that we remain positioned well for the bounce back that will come when this passes, by the way. I had the same experience with SARS many years ago when that industry bounced back by 600% in the aftermath of SARS.
And you can see that full interview on People and Profit later today on France 24. Now, a bright spot in the recent slew of corporate results was the French carmaker PSA, which makes the brands including Peugeot, Citroën and Opel. It reported record profits for last year and is sharing its success with staff, offering lower paid workers a bonus of over €4,000. Erin Ogunkeye reports.
Good news for Peugeot automaker PSA brings good news for its employees. The group will pay a bonus of up to €4,100 for workers who earn less than €2,400 a month, which corresponds to twice the minimum wage. The PSA bonus is significantly higher than the average in the automobile sector, which was €3,331 in 2018.
It's good news. I'll save part of it and enjoy the rest.
It's a good gesture. We're satisfied with it.
2019 saw record-breaking profits for PSA, with the group's net income reaching an unprecedented €3.2 billion, up 13% from last year. PSA's CEO said employees should be the first to benefit from the results.
We are sharing the wealth with our workers. Over the past 6 years, we've increased the sum of performance-related bonuses fivefold.
For some union members, however, the gesture is insufficient.
We're going to take the bonus. It belongs to us because of our sacrifices, but now we want salary increases.
The good news comes after an otherwise tough time for PSA employees. In 2012, the company obtained a government bailout amid a sales slump, and in 2018, it laid off some 2,000 workers to cut costs. To increase profitability, PSA has recently focused efforts on its more expensive models like these SUVs. The group also benefited from the successful restructuring of its German subsidiary, Opel. With comfortable revenues, the automobile giant can now direct attention to its next challenge, merging with Fiat Chrysler, which would make the carmaker the industry's fourth largest.
A court in California has ruled that social media platforms like YouTube and Facebook are free to censor content as they see fit. The Federal Appeals Court rejected an argument that these companies should be subject to the First Amendment, which guarantees free speech. The case was taken by a conservative non-profit organisation against YouTube, which had flagged its videos as inappropriate. And finally, for me, a small rebellion among shareholders at Apple. 2/5 of them supported a proposal which would force the iPhone maker to uphold freedom of expression globally and be more transparent about censorship demands from Beijing. It's the third time that shareholders have voted on this kind of motion, but support jumped from 10 to 40% in 2 years. The consumer advocacy group backing the proposal says the vote sends a clear message to Apple that it must do better on human rights. The company's faced recent criticism for removing a map application used by protesters in Hong Kong. Stuart.
Well done, shareholders. Thank you very much. Stephen Carroll with the business on France 24.